Well, hey, g'day, Chase. Thanks for joining me today, mate. I'm really excited to have this conversation because I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding out there about what the opportunities are of ownership. I tell the story, you've heard me tell it, right? My previous broker owner, when I worked for a different franchise organization, I was sitting on his 54-foot Sea Ray parked on Lake Coeur d'Alene. And he said to me this evening, he said, you know what, Bruce, there's no money in ownership. It's all the agents who make the money. Of course, I was sitting on his 54-foot Sea Ray, which for those who don't know what that is, that's $1 million boat. So I wanted to talk with you, if I could, about your journey in terms of launching a Keller Williams franchise. Let's just sort of go back to the beginning. You and I were in business. You're a team leader for me and looking for more opportunity. So what was attractive to you about launching a Keller Williams franchise?
Well, a lot, Bruce. That's a big question. A few things that come to the top of my mind were I had been familiarized with the power and the value of a Keller Williams franchise, right? As a team leader initially. And so I was involved in leadership, but I saw the opportunity that owning one was affording a bunch of people now that I was in relationship with and in collaboration with. So I had that advantage, I would say. I was learning from the inside and saying, oh my gosh, like this is such a great model and system, right? Which is what you would anticipate getting from a franchise, is a really powerful model and system to follow. And I think the other part, Bruce, was I've always been attracted to owning businesses. I would say even from a really young age. I had some people in my life, my dad one, my uncle another, that were business owners at different stages and various levels of success. And I just felt like owning a business was going to be part of my pathway, part of my journey at some point. I believe that real estate happens to be a really great vehicle for owning businesses, right? Like sometimes people think differently about the opportunity of real estate, and there are multiple opportunities, right? Selling real estate, owning real estate, and then owning a business in real estate, to me, was really a great vehicle. There's a lot of money in real estate, Bruce, and there's a lot of people to serve. And so you kind of put those two things together, and it's, in my opinion, a recipe for a great business. I also saw it as an opportunity for kind of leveraging some of the strengths and the experience I had already built inside of the real estate industry, because I had been in real estate for a number of years before I went and launched a market center. And as I thought, of all the businesses I might go and own, it makes a lot of sense to own one in a space that I am familiar with and have developed skill in and have relationships inside of, right? So it seemed to be kind of an obvious pathway for me.
Okay. So, and I get that, right? The idea of owning your own real estate company. Why did you choose, other than the fact that you were working at Keller Williams at the time, but what do you think are the benefits of owning a Keller Williams franchise versus going and launching an independent brokerage where you don't have the overhead of the franchise organization?
Yeah, that's an easy one for me, Bruce. And I've shared this at various times in my career. Is I'm pretty clear on the things I'm good at, and I'm pretty clear on the things I'm not good at. And so whatever business I would be looking to pursue, I would be looking for the right partner. And partner can mean a lot of different things. But for me, the partner was the franchise organization that was going to help me, show me, and guide me into doing what I wanted well. There was a pathway that I could run on rather than trying to recreate the wheel, right? And there was also a lot of systems that would be in place in the key areas that I knew were not strengths of mine, whether that's the back end of the business and organizing the business in such a way that allows for growth and understanding at that point the financials of the business, because those were still skills that I was developing at that level. And a lot of that was in place. So that was one of the things I was like, I'm not good at these things. And there's models and systems that are wrapped around those things so that I don't screw them up, right? Because I'm good at these other things that are going to marry really well to this partnership. I think the other one, Bruce, is a system like ours, or a franchise system like ours at Keller Williams. We're really blessed with great leadership and great vision of what's happening in the industry and why it matters and where we need to be going, right? Like kind of we would call it skating to where the puck is going to be versus where it's at, right? To use a hockey analogy. If I was going to undertake something as ambitious as owning a business, I wanted to make sure, again, that I was partnering with someone who knew where the industry was going, knew where that business needed to go, so that I don't have to try to figure all that out on my own. I also think, Bruce, that the opportunity to collaborate and be in community with other owners of something very similar, almost identical to what I was looking to build, was something that I really, really desired. I see a lot of business owners, sometimes they're kind of siloed or they're disconnected, and they're really constantly recreating the wheel. They're trying to figure things out on their own. And I just don't like doing things like that. I like to figure things out with others. I like to learn from them, both their successes and their mistakes. And so being in a community of business owners was something that I desired in a strong way. I had experienced the value that brought as a real estate agent and collaborating at a high level. And so as I was moving into this idea of being a business owner, or brokerage owner in this case, I wanted to make sure I was taking advantage again of the power that collaboration brings. And I saw that as another key ingredient that was important to me.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because, we know that there are a lot of small businesses started each and every year, and a lot of them don't succeed. This idea of following models, proven successful models that work. When you talk about small business, most small business owners think, well, it's going to take me a year or two to get profitable. And yet, if you follow the Keller Williams model, you launch profitable.
Yep.
I don't want to, this is not candy coating. We know that launching businesses is not easy. Right. No. It takes work and effort. Now, what I think is really fascinating with your experience is you went and launched a brokerage in a city that you didn't live in.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 hours away, actually, a little over 2 hours away.
Right. So Tri-Cities, Washington. What were some of the things you learned from that experience? What were some of the challenges? And how did you go about doing it?
I wouldn't have known how to go about doing it without the guidance from you and from the system, the franchise system. Like, we have a playbook in essence that says, here's how you go and launch successfully, not just launch, but launch successfully a market center, a brokerage. And so I followed that as closely as I could, right? It's never perfect. And we can talk about all the things that weren't perfect. But one thing I knew, Bruce, is that I didn't have any influence in the Tri-Cities. No one knew me there. And so I needed to go find people that I could get into relationship that had influence there. We did that through teaching classes and getting connected to people that were talented people that lived in the Tri-Cities that had influence there. And we started kind of gathering them in what we would call a core group. What it taught me was a whole bunch of people's influence is always going to be better than one person's influence, right? It also taught me that doing things well is very different than succeeding through others, right? And leading others well. I had to really grow and develop as a leader, right? Not just as a business owner, but a leader of other people. And things like understanding the power of casting a big vision for people and communicating that in such a way that they could get behind it, and kind of the ripple effect that had. But it was challenging in the sense that it was 2 hours away, and there's only so much you can do virtually or by phone, right? So I needed to be there pretty consistently, right? So although I wasn't there for a lot of days, I was probably there a day a week at least on average, right? Sometimes I go down for 2 days, sometimes I go down for 1 day. But on average, I was there a day a week, and the consistency of not only starting those relationships, but nurturing them and being there with those people as we were getting ready to launch was definitely challenging, right? Because that was on top of just life in general and my other responsibilities at the time.
So you started going down there, you were doing it on a regular basis. What happened?
We started to create a lot of excitement of what was going to come, right? And that was, the vision of a new Keller Williams office and what that meant for people involved. And we did that with just a few people at first, and then a few more people, and then a few more people. And it really took on kind of a life of its own. It was kind of fascinating, Bruce. It was fascinating to watch when you cast a clear and powerful vision and people start to latch onto that and share it with everyone they know and get as excited as you are and maybe more for some of them. it's like this strange momentum. And all of a sudden, more people are coming to the vision and they're being attracted. It's like a magnet. And again, not to me, because I wasn't there, right? A lot. It was to the vision of what was to be and what that meant for each person involved, the value that they would get from it. And even just being part of something bigger than themselves, Bruce, like people are drawn to that. I think we all are as humans, right? And so getting excited around something that didn't yet exist was something that was kind of fascinating for me to watch. So we started gathering people up for a movement. I was really lucky, Bruce, in the beginning to find a handful of real estate agents in that community that were well connected and had lots of strong relationships, but also were, really driven by the vision of what we were going to create. And so they were having lots of conversations with other agents they knew and other people and really like repeating that vision. And so, we knew we needed to get to a certain number in order to launch powerfully. Because just like you said, if you follow the model, you can launch and be profitable day one. Why would you want to wait a year or two or whatever? That's why so many small businesses fail. And so we were really intentional about making sure we followed the math and followed the model before we actually launched, right? Because we didn't want to have a false start. We didn't want to create all this excitement and go have all these conversations and start these relationships only to have what we would have considered a false start. We wanted to start really powerfully, knowing that there was going to be another wave of people that would wait to see if we were successful or not, right? You kind of have the bell curve and you have your early adopters, and those are the people that you're looking for initially, but you kind of have like the majority of people that say, you know what, like I am excited by what you shared, and yet I want to make sure it's going to work first, or I want to see it play out first, and then I'll consider what it would look like to jump on board.
Now, Chase, you had an option, right? I mean, you had choices. And one of the options was you could have just owned this business on your own, but you chose to create opportunity for those influential people in your marketplace, right? Talk to me a little bit about that. What was your mindset around that?
When you combine a group of people's influence, it's always going to be more powerful than one person's. I think also you want to have people that are going to be there on a full-time basis, that are involved at a level that can ensure that we're moving toward the vision of the company, right? And so understanding that I had no intention of moving there, I needed to make sure that I had partners, right, that were there and cared as much as I did, not just about the vision, of course that, but also from a financial perspective and having skin in the game of what we were trying to build. So I think that was really important to me, Bruce. By the way, like you mentioned it before, but there's nothing easy about launching a new business. No one pursues a new business because they expect it to be easy. So I don't think that's new news to anyone, but it's easier with a group of people, right? It's easier to move through the challenges that will come. It's more fun to celebrate the wins with other people when they come. And I talked about that collaboration before, just that opportunity to problem solve and move through whatever may come. That to me is always more fun done with others. And I also knew that if I was going to benefit as an owner of this company and live 2 hours away, who else was going to be benefiting from what we were building that lived in the local market we were building it in? So I think to me, that was really important.
And I love to use the word collaboration a lot there, Chase. And one of the things that, I'd like the people listening to this conversation not to miss, right, is not only did you get to collaborate with the people that you were getting into business with, but there is a degree and a level of support that comes from the organization that is Keller Williams, right? So from the region and from KWRI in terms of training and resources to help you do that. What did that mean to you to have that sort of support?
It was invaluable, Bruce. I mean, I think of launching a brokerage in this fashion with Keller Williams as like getting an MBA degree, right? If you're going to get a degree, then you're going to go through lots of training and you're going to use, right, great systems that exist. You don't just show up and work hard and get a degree. You're going to follow what's necessary to get the degree. And in this case, it's an organization that has an incredible track record of helping business owners create profitable businesses, right? The percentage of Keller Williams franchises that are profitable and succeed through launch is incredibly high, right? Compared to doing it on your own, right? We know the rate of failure in small business, and you mentioned it. So instead of pretending that I knew everything about how to do it well, right? I was pretty clear I didn't know everything about how to do it well. I love to learn, right? And so having a framework for doing that, whether it's a class or a leader, was invaluable. And so I didn't have to recreate the wheel. I could just kind of follow the plan and learn all the way along, right? I think that's one of the things we often talk about inside of the company, right, Bruce, is just this idea of being a lifelong learner. When you think about launching a new business in any market, whether you live there or not, there's a lot to learn. And so having the confidence that you have a resource that can teach it to you when you need it or even before you need it gave me a lot of security, right? I didn't have to wonder, like, is there going to be a resource for me to learn this, or am I going to go have to figure it out on my own? Again, I don't want to figure it out on my own. And so the resources that the company provided were invaluable for that.
Love that. Well, as a franchisor, we do not make earnings claims, right? I want to be real clear about that. And yet, because everyone's experience is going to be different based on what they do, how they do it, how they follow the model. But can you give me a sense of what has been your return on investment to go build this business?
There's so many things that I've gotten that aren't monetary that I feel like were maybe even a bigger return than the monetary returns, which have also been big. By the way, it's one of the best investments financially I've ever made. It's about 5 times the money that I initially put in that I've made back inside of 5 years, right? So it's a 5X on my investment. The company's made about $1.5 million in the first 5 years, right? And that's net profit. That's not including profit share that's been shared out with the associates, right? And that's a whole nother conversation. But so that's not total profit that the company made. That's about half, right? Give or take. And so you think about, a company that made $1.5 million in net profit in the first 5 years of existence. That's a stark contrast to all those small businesses that fail because they're not making a profit in the first few years. So from a financial perspective, it's been incredible. The thing I would say too, Bruce, and I think sometimes this is maybe a myth understanding when people are considering, a business and how much money it makes versus how much money they make actively, right? We talk about the path of money. There's a difference in creating this active investment versus the dollars that we work for on an hourly basis, for example, right? In part, yeah, and I think you're going to, if you bring up the slide here, it'll demonstrate the path of money. And we know that, like, if I'm a realtor, for example, I make a lot of money selling real estate in commission. Well, that's your human capital, right? That requires your effort and the work that you provide, right? The hours that you give to create that return. Let's start at the top. You see the capital assets that are creating cash flow in your world. That's not the effort that you're giving as a real estate agent. That's coming from one of those investment opportunities that you see there at the bottom. And if you look to the right side, you see that owning a business is an active investment, meaning it's not passive, it's not mailbox money. It requires some level of effort. The difference is the amount of effort and the hours of effort, right? And so for me, there was a lot more hours in the beginning of launching the business. And as it kind of grew and we got more leverage and filled different roles and attracted and hired great talented people, my hours went down and my dollars went up. And so now it became, yes, I was still actively involved, but it truly became this capital asset that was created in my world. I think of it as linear income. It was in a space that I was already operating in. It was using skills that I had already been building. And now all of a sudden, the dollar per hour or this active investment was truly helping me supercharge my wealth building, right? So you think about getting 5 times your money on an investment inside of 5 years, that's a big deal. There's not a whole lot of investments you can expect to get that in.
Absolutely. Well, and when you look at this path of money, when it comes to investing, you really have 2 basic choices, right? You can either loan your money or you can own something. then you could actually take two basic positions on that, which is either you could be absolutely passive or you could be active. And I think the key here is that on the active side, the rate of return is always going to be better, right, than the passive side. On the active side, in terms of lending, you could become a hard money lender, offer owner financing, right? Or alternatively, you could go and own things like real estate. And again, I think of this too, Chase, is owning real estate in order to receive passive income requires active investment on the front end. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, you've got to be active in the selection and setting the criteria and doing all of that on the front end of your real estate investing as well in order to receive that return. And owning a business is no different, right, in that regard.
Everyone's experience is a little different. Everyone's long-term plan for their business is a little different. So I gave a lot of effort on the front end of launching this business, right, this market center. And gladly so. It was fun. Now, it wasn't easy, but it was fun. And we created something really cool. And as the years have kind of gone by now, only 5, gosh, sometimes it seems more than that, but it's really only been 5 years since we launched. The amount of hours that I spend in that business now are close to 0. They're not 0, but they're close. They're closer to 0 per week than they are 10 per week. Let's put it that way, right? Yep. And so again, the dollar per hour is by far and away the highest dollar per hour I get from any investment. And when I look at the income that I get from distributions out of this particular company, and I compare it to all of my other investments, because I could go back to that path of money and I have a number of other investments in both of those boxes. Mm-hmm. The amount is better than all of them. Again, you tell the story about your former brokerage owner telling you that there's no money in the brokerage business. And of course, that wasn't true. You're sitting on the boat. I think some people still think that, Bruce. The myth sometimes is if you're comparing it to the amount of money you're earning with your human capital, you're comparing apples to oranges. That's all I mean, right? Both of those things are good. They both create cash flow on the top of the funnel, but they're apples and oranges. They're not apples and apples. And so I was clear that I wanted to give the effort and spend the time and make the investment in creating and building an asset, not just earning income, right? Can do both of those things at the same time, by the way, which is nice. But I was really clear on, from a financial perspective, that was why owning a business was important to me. There's lots of other things that were more important, just serving other people well and developing as a leader and learning about business at a higher level. Those things were at least as important. But make no mistake, the reason to own a business is, in part, the profit that business creates, right? Otherwise, we should just start a nonprofit. That's a different interview, right?
Right. Absolutely. So, Chase, if there's somebody listening to this and they say, this sounds really interesting to me, this is something I think I might want to do, what would be your advice to people thinking about going down this road?
Start a conversation, ask questions, right? Go interview people that have done what you're hoping to do. I'd love to chat with anyone who's interested in it. And I'm happy to share the good, bad, and the ugly around you starting a business. If you've not started a business before, Bruce, and a lot of folks haven't, it can seem daunting. And so asking good questions and understanding the resources that are going to be available to you can help you kind of get over that hump of like, I've not done this before, so how can I anticipate doing it well? You can anticipate doing it well if you've not done it before by enlisting the right support, right? By finding the right partner, by following a proven model. The recipe for success in my thinking, Bruce, is never recreating the wheel. There's people on the planet that do recreate the wheel, right? Like the Elon Musk, for example. I mean, he's sending people to space, right? Like regularly. That feels like recreating the wheel. Although I'm guessing that even Elon was following some of the things that worked when people went into space before, right? People have gone before you. People have done what you want to do that you can learn from. And by the way, are totally open to sharing everything that they did to get there. That's one of the things I love about the community and the collaboration, Bruce, is this abundant mindset, right? Like if I tell everyone exactly what I did to go and build this business, it's okay if they go and do it. Matter of fact, I want them to. That doesn't harm me in any way, even if it's in the same town, believe it or not, right? If you ask good questions and you go and talk to people that have gone before you, you're going to learn a lot. regardless of the decision that you make. But don't do nothing. If you're curious, ask questions, stay curious, because that'll lead you in one direction or the other, Bruce. Like, it's okay if you ask great questions and you learn enough to decide, hey, this might not be the best thing for me. But you never know unless you ask the questions versus, oh, actually, I'm learning enough to know that this is something that is going to be good for me, and or maybe my next step in my wealth building journey or leadership journey, whatever that may be. Don't be afraid to stay curious around it.
You're a wonderful example of this, Chase, is when you're successful doing this, the opportunities and what you get are way beyond just the money you're making there, but the opportunities to go and do more of the same. Right. I mean, you're an OP now in Spokane, Washington. Mm-hmm. So, you're in multiple market centers. And that is one of the opportunities for those who want to go down this path of creating this passive income.
I'm glad you said that, Bruce, because launching this business, launching this brokerage in and of itself was a great decision for me. Right. And I'm thankful that I got the opportunity to do that. But it was actually a window to additional opportunities, like you shared. Right. Like learning to do that well. And by the way, making plenty of mistakes and learning through those. That's usually how we learn best, right? We go forward and we make mistakes and we adjust. But ultimately getting to some level of success in launching that business has created other business opportunities for me and other roles inside of the organization, as an example. And by the way, Bruce, one of the things I love most about it is I get the opportunity to share those lessons and share that experience with the people that I serve and lead. Right? Not from like some book I read. I've read plenty of those, but like from actually going through the experience. And so to get to come alongside other people and serve them and doing the same type of thing well in their business is absolutely a true joy. And I'm thankful that I got to get that experience so that I can give it to others. And I think that most successful business people feel that way. Right? It's why you find that the majority of them are abundant thinking and they're giving and they'll tell you anything they know, because it's a joy to get to give that to somebody having experienced it yourself, right?
I think that in today's environment where the world is changing, the market is changing, people may be questioning whether or not, is this the right time? Is this still an opportunity to go launch a business? What's your take on that?
Those are common questions, Bruce. And by the way, they're fair questions. But when you look at what's happening in our industry, and by the way, every industry is always changing to some degree, right? So we say, okay, well, there's a lot changing right now. Well, there was a lot changing a year ago and 2 years ago and 5 years ago and 20 years ago, right? But I think what you're seeing is that the opportunity isn't ever smaller, right? It actually gets bigger, in my opinion, for those that do it well. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So if you say, okay, well, if this is going to be the right opportunity in any given time inside of the industry, then I want to make sure that I'm going to take the appropriate steps to do it well. Because those that don't do it well or don't find the right pathway to go down, we're going to see more consolidation in the industry, I think, Bruce, because that's kind of the natural cycle of any industry. A period of consolidation. So again, I think that for the people that say, hey, this is right for me for these reasons, there's never less opportunity. There's only more now because you've opened up and maybe a different opportunity than you currently have, or a different one than you were pursuing before. Not just abundant thinking, although that's part of it, but those that do it well going forward are like any professional in any industry, their opportunity continues to get bigger.
Yeah. Just a sidebar, when I launched my first market center 24 years ago, oh my God, 24 years ago, we were Keller Who then, still a really teeny tiny company. What I realized that becoming an OP actually did more for my own sales business than anything else I'd done, because I learned some business skills that I didn't have when I was just selling real estate on my own. And I love that you said, right, having a sales business and owning a market center are not mutually exclusive. You can do both of those things at the same time.
Absolutely. And it is going to make you better on both sides, right? Because they're such complementary skills, but sometimes we're not pursuing them at the level that we could because we don't have a specific reason to. And once we are, it's like, oh my gosh, all of these are transferring back over to these other things I'm part of. And that's certainly been the case for me as well. The lessons I got in launching this business served me in every role that I had, every other business that I owned, even the investments that I made along the way, because I was learning at a rapid pace, right? And with a lot of support and a lot of guidance and a lot of resources to do it, right? Not just trying to recreate the wheel or figure it out on my own.
Well, Chase, I want to just say thank you for taking the time and sharing with us and being open about it. I'm going to take you up on your offer. And that is, if anybody does want to talk to you, they can, right?
Absolutely.
So I'll make sure that we've got your contact information here. I just think everyone owes it to themselves, right, to find out what the opportunities are. Thank you for being a great role model, and thanks for sharing. We really appreciate you.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Bruce. I would be happy to speak to anyone. There's probably more questions than we would ever cover in this type of format, but hopefully it gives someone enough to reach out, right? And if it's not to me or you, like, we can connect them. If you're wondering if owning a brokerage is right for you and then how to do that well, we'd love to connect you. Just more people for us to collaborate with.